Hey everybody, what's going on? It's your girl Camilla Essick. I'm host of the Speaker Podcast. This is the podcast where innovators and creators connect. Be sure to hit that notification bell and subscribe. Follow me right now. I am on the YouTube channel as well as Instagram and Facebook. The information is right there below. We also have our merchandise for the brothers, which is out right now. gbmofficial.com. There is a sale going on all sweatshirts and hoodies. The coupon code is available. The sale is still going on, I believe, until midnight Sunday. I do want to hop into everything and just jump right into this conversation because we have so much ground to cover. With that being said, I do want to welcome back Dr. Sheldon Mcafee. Welcome to the show.
Hey, everybody.
Hey, Dr. Sheldon. Let everyone know a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Yeah, so thanks for having me back, Camille. I really do enjoy our conversations. Y'all missed all the good stuff before the podcast launched. We just talked about everything. But I'm Dr. Sheldon Mcafee. I am a happily retired public school teacher and principal of 20 years. I am an educational consultant. I'm an author of children's literature and a recent new college professor. I've been doing this work around trauma-informed care, equity education, as well as elementary education and creative writing. And I do a little bit of tech education, working on a platform that will help us respond to the teacher shortage and then also help us come up. My goal is to help us think of innovative ways to rethink schools. And when you do me a favor, when you follow me on IG, add that C in between the N and the M. I know it's a lot of Sheldon Mcafees out there, but I'm Sheldon C. Mcafee. I'm the cute one. That's what the C stands for.
You all right. And it is a D9 night. He is a member of Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated. So it is nothing but Indiana love in here tonight. Okay.
That's right.
My first question, Dr. Sheldon, is we have seen this generation of, and I want to hop right into advocacy for our educators. A lot of times we've heard stories about a child misbehaving in the classroom and then the parent wanting to come up to the school and go off on the teacher or the principal. But when the child is at fault. So can we first have this conversation, Dr. Sheldon? You're already like, oh, I can see it on your face. But can we please have this conversation, Dr. Sheldon, about the importance of backing up our educators, our principals, our teachers, our professors? Can we please start that conversation?
Yeah, even to my detriment, I backed up a teacher, but that's what you do as a principal.
Right.
So when I was a student, and I always think about how much I revered and respected my teachers. I still remember them. We just finished our Teacher Appreciation Week, and I can go from pre-K all the way up until 8th grade, my homeroom teachers, and I could tell you some high school teachers that I had because I had teachers who I believed cared for me.
Yeah.
And so it started with them being respectful and kind, which made me in turn be respectful and kind to them. Now, I've been removed from the classroom only for a little while, but I do believe that our teachers are still respectful of students and want them in that space. And so I would urge parents and students to presume good intentions. Know that a person who is serving as a teacher is not doing it because they just got, and I'm only saying his name, Jalen Hurt, because I see him on screen right now. We don't have Jalen Hurt money, right? We do this because we believe in our why. And so teachers walk into that room and they think about the reason they walk in that room every single day, right? My why used to be, it still is, I'm preparing the future. I know that when I'm dead and gone, I'm going to need someone else to step in. And when I was an elementary school teacher, I would look at my students one day, and when we were struggling on a science test, and they were like, I just can't get it. I can't get it. I said, listen, I need you to get this because one day when I walk into the hospital and you're my doctor, I want to look up and say, oh, I know you know this because I taught you 5th grade science. Okay. He's like, you think I'm going to be a doctor one day, Mr. Mack? Maybe, but I want to make sure I did my part to get you there, right? So if parents and students would understand that we go into these classrooms believing in the best of you. Like we see the data, we see how low test scores are, we see how low attendance is, we see how high the discipline is, but the teachers show up, right? So if we have these rules that say no cell phones in the classroom, if we have these rules that say please stay in your seat until you get permission, if we have
Right.
rules that say parents make an appointment and show up, uh, follow through with them, because teachers have rules that we have to follow through,
Mhm.
right? And so it is concerning to me when I turn on social media. It's almost as traumatizing as watching black bodies being hurt by police officers. When I turn on the television or I look at a social media post and I see a teacher being assaulted or a teacher embarrassing a kid over a cell phone, over having a hoodie on their head, that shouldn't be. There needs to be a talk about building community in classrooms. And I'm so excited. I just got a couple of my fall schedules, and one of the classes that I'm teaching is school community connections, right? How
Mhm.
do I create a community inside of that classroom where kids feel safe enough to learn, right? Where parents and teachers have a bond that's created, not a 9-month period and you're out. It should be a bond that's created. So when I tell you that your child is being disruptive, I'm not picking on your kid. I want you to know I'm telling you this because I believe the best for your child. But sometimes you're going to have to hear uncomfortable information like your child is disruptive. And that might not be your favorite thing to hear. But know that when I'm saying it, I'm not saying it lightheartedly. I put some time and energy into working with this kid, asking this young man and young lady to cooperate. So when I come to you parents, I want you to know that that's the work I'm doing. And I hope that's the work that teachers are doing. I know the ones that I train and work with are doing that. I know the ones that I'm teaching are doing that. And so I believe in my heart of hearts that majority of teachers walk in the classroom believing in their why, holding positive intentions for students, and wanting the best for them. And I hope parents and students understand that and receive it for that, for what it's meant to be.
That's really good. I was reading a comment today, excuse me, from someone that I know, and she was discussing, sharing online about what her son is going through. Based on what I was gathering from the post, he's changed schools and he misses his friends from his other school, and so now he's in a new school, and pretty much he's experiencing some bullying. And he's, a young black male. I'm thinking about 13 or 14, and he's asking his mom, well, should I change my behavior so they won't pick on me anymore? Or how should I be? Because he was like, I miss my friend, but now I'm in this new school and going through that adjustment. So, what do you say to parents that may be experiencing, that are experiencing changes where maybe they change school zones, different schools, and the switch of their social circles, and how should they try to help their child to adjust to the changes?
Yeah, of course, change is always unsettling. I just taught a lesson with children about social emotional learning. Like, how would you respond if your best friend moves away? And
Hmm.
majority of the kids in every classroom, kindergarten through second grade, said they feel sad. One young man said he'd be happy if his friend moved away because he'd have a place to go visit him then.
Oh,
So that was nice, right? But that was, he said, I get to go and I get to talk to him on the phone. So what I would try to do if I was a parent in that predicament or a student in that predicament, try to create a sense of normalcy as much as possible, right? So if you had friends that you connected with at another school, see if there's a way you could still stay in touch with their mom and dad. See if you can, if they can call on the phone, maybe FaceTime, maybe once it, if you're in the same area, hopefully you can maybe go visit them. Maybe you can do like a book club or something where you guys read the same item and or same book or same comic book or same story or whatever the case may be, and then talk about it later on. If they can get them involved in some type of extracurricular activity, right, like a sport or dance or music or art, something that they find interesting. Most of the time you find your strong friends around those people who have those similar interests with you. Now,
hmm.
I know it's hard when you go to a new school for whatever reason. I don't understand the dynamics, but someone feels like they have to pick on, single out the new kid, right? When I was a classroom teacher, I always, introduced the new kid, had the kids, have them tell them a little bit about themselves. And if the kids had interesting questions that they wanted to know, we break the ice that way, because it's, if you find out that the new kid plays baseball and there are kids in the classroom that play baseball, maybe we can get along. But just dropping them in without any type of warm introduction usually separates them. But if you bring them in with some kind of structure, right,
Hmm.
it'll help them to find ways. Like I've been at a school and our principal used to have these ambassadors for new students. So it would be a student, chaperone, or volunteer student who just walk around the school with you, and they assigned you someone different each. It was a middle school, so they assigned you someone different each week so that you could just get comfortable to different people, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then gave you someone that you could, ask questions to, a name you could learn. It must be real awkward being a new kid in a space and you don't know anyone's name, right? So if you can find ways, principals, teachers, to create structures where when new kids come in, they feel warm, they feel welcomed. I think that'll really add to your school culture, because what you don't want is the adverse, and that kid coming in turn out to be to maybe even become a potential bully because they feel like ostracized or left out or neglected by the new school community. So hopefully we're creating spaces where there's structure and kids are welcomed in.
That's really good.
Mhm.
And another thing I wanted to ask you, Dr. Sheldon, although I'm not a parent, again, I read a lot of comments and I listen to a lot of conversation and narrative online. The importance of parents advocating for their child. Every now and then, I tune in to Dr. Umar Johnson, and I'm pretty sure you're familiar with his work. And he's really big on advocating for your child, particularly our Black and Brown kids in the classroom. And I saw a comment within the last week. A parent was saying that um, the teacher was putting marks on their child's report card that weren't really necessarily true, and so having to kind of combat or advocate for her child, to say, well, why are you doing this? Where is this coming from? Because it was almost like the teacher was building a case against their child, setting them up pretty much to say they're a behavior problem. And so we hear terms like prison the pipeline and things like that. So Dr. Sheldon, can you really talk, for the parents that may be watching or listening or catch the replay later, about the importance of really tracking comments made about their child on report cards, testing, things like that, and really highlight the importance of advocating for your child when these things are happening?
Yeah, yeah. It's unfortunate that some teachers will make those type of statements on official documents because your report card, it's transferred with you. Those records
Right.
stay with you. So I'm hoping that that the teacher will start off by understanding that these are permanent comments, right? And if they're not factual statements that will be used to help the student improve, they shouldn't be added to the report card. Let's
Right.
start there, right? If you say he's a strong reader, likes paying attention to scientific reading more so than fictional reading, that's a statement you can put on the comment. But
Mhm.
adding behavior comments, I think those should be done to the parent in a non-document in a non-permanent documented way. Like you can
Right.
email me, text me, and call me if you're having behavior issues with my son. My son's teachers do that all the time, and I have a conversation with him, but it's nothing put on his permanent record.
Mhm.
So to that vein, advocate. This reminds me of a real cute story. So my son had a principal at a different school. He's not the one he's at now, but she thought she was gonna out email me. Oh, baby, you got the right one, baby. Uh,
You
so
know,
what
when we
she
say baby, it's serious.
it is, so she came up with some kind of arbitrary rule about my ex at the time showing up in his classroom. And so she just was going back and forth, making up these all kinds of out of the box rules about, why someone couldn't be in her room. And then she kept equating it to at her last school.
Mhm.
I have no care in the world about your last school, lady. I care about my son at this school right now. And I guess she thought if she kept using like multisyllabic words and putting per hour, like that was going to intimidate me. But no, parents don't feel intimidated because someone from the school is making statements on your child's report card and their permanent records or to you in an email. And I know the history of our people and when it comes to connecting with public institutions, right? Because a
Mhm.
school is a public institution, like a prison system is a public institution, like libraries are a public institution, like police officers, like that's a public institution, the police department. So we are a little hesitant when we come into schools because they're public institutions and they also hold a pseudo authority position over us, right? They create these rules that say we have to follow through with them, da 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 da.
Right.
In that vein, we kind of tread lightly and we sometimes blindly follow those rules. But
Mhm.
what we have to make sure, parents, is that those are actual factual rules. Like the principal before kept saying, well, at my last school, da 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 da. That's not this school, right? And then another time, my son he's in middle school, and COVID happened, and so when they went back, you had to submit a pass through Google form, right? And so that you put the pass in, teachers would approve it, you get the pass, and then you go. So my son, being as clever as he is, he figures out, I can just keep submitting these passes. They're gonna keep approving them. So he does, and they do. So then I get some kind of long, lengthy email. He's got in-school suspension, and he can't use. Whoa! What are you talking about? He's abusing the pass system. I said, well, let me see the pass system in writing. What does it say documented? What is the policy that you all are following around these hall passes? Oh, it's just some kind. It's nothing in writing. It's just what we all agreed to. Who is we and all and agreed to, and what are these terms y'all agreed to?
Right, definitions.
Yeah, I need to see it in writing, because if you are a public institution like schools are, you have to provide documentation around your procedures, your policies, your rules, your grades, all that. So once they started backpedaling, we were able to come to an agreement that Jeremiah, my son, needs to, stay in class more often, but he's not going to be penalized because you didn't put protective barriers in place because you think he's abusing the system. He followed the policy. Fill out the form, get a form, go to the restroom, which is what he did every single time. My questions were, did he walk out of the classroom without permission? No. Okay. Did he say something rude or disrespectful when you approved the pass for him to leave the classroom? No. So tell me why he's being placed in school suspension. That doesn't make sense to me.
The math is not mathing.
The math is not mathing. So what I would encourage parents to do is, if someone at the school charges you and tells you that your child is neglectful or missing out on X, Y, and Z, ask them to show you in writing what's expected of them. And if they can't produce that, then they can't hold your child to it. It's not fair. Expectations need to be clearly stated across the board, right? Because if I'm the parent, I want my child to do well. I don't want you to go to school and mess up. So I'm going to say, hey, son, hey, daughter, these are the things that the school expects of you. It's right here in writing. And I'm going to hold you to that because they shared it with me, and I'll help you with that, but we're not going to abuse it, right? And if it's in writing and it's fair, we can follow through with it. And let me emphasize fair, because just because they put it in writing doesn't necessarily mean that it's fair.
Right. The push for equality, as far as even in reprimand with our kids, and I'm saying our, where I'm coming from with that, versus their counterparts or their peers. We see that trickle down as they get older with infractions as far as disproportionate sentencing in the legal justice system. So going back to the original premise, Dr. Sheldon, how can parents, again, continue to push and advocate if there is a disciplinary issue or something against their child, like what you mentioned with the ISS, if it escalates to that point and now they're in the principal's office, what leeway or what leverage do parents have?
So a couple of things. When principals pass out consequences, there's a process they have to follow called due process of law. And so basically they have to ask both sides of the parties what happened and get to their best recollection and understanding from both sides what happened. And then they got to go do their own little investigating. The part I love the most, sarcastically, he said, being a principal, having to go track down witnesses and look at footage and get statements. But even in all of that, remind the students, parents, to talk to your students. If you don't feel comfortable talking in that moment, because remember, after the incident happens, you might be flustered. You might be, you might not necessarily fully recollect everything that happens. So in a moment, you don't have to say right then and there what happened. You will have to give a statement, but you can take a break. You can say, I need a breather. Or if they say, well, I'm going to process this without your comment, they can't do that. You have to hear from both sides. Even if the child says, I don't remember, you have to hear them say that. So if the child is frustrated, after you call the principals or parents, when they call you, tell your child, wait till I get there and you tell me, and then we could put our, we can see how we'll make this delivery to the school administrator about what happened, because children are nervous, right? And even when I had the littles in my office, like the kindergartners who would just willy-nilly tell you everything, you still want
them. You call the kindergartners the littles?
The littles, yeah, the littles. When they come in there, they want to tell you everything from beginning to end. Like the fight happened on the playground, but they want to tell, well, 2 weeks ago we was in. No, baby, no, baby, no. I don't need no 2 weeks ago. I want to know right now what happened.
Right.
But my point to say is, uh, make sure your students understand their rights. Right. So due process means that they have to hear your side out before they issue you a consequence. And in that moment, when you are upset, which is when most disciplinary actions happen, like a kid is upset, they say something they ain't mean to say, or they do something they didn't intend to do, or they do something on purpose, right?
Mhm.
But you might want to take a breather. Take that breather, organize your thoughts, and then explain yourself as clearly as you can. Now, be mindful though, if you know you did something that's outside the violation of the school's policy, that there might be a consequence. The For most part, the discernment or discretion of consequence falls to the principal. Now, there might be some times where and I say principal, I mean the principal and assistant principal, so the building administrator. But there might be times where the district level or superintendent gets involved, right? And even then, there are contingencies and procedures that parents get to follow so that they know that they're in the right. So like if there's a board hearing, there's a policy for that, and it tells you what you get to have. Like and also there are child advocacy centers, right? In your local city, in your community, I'm sure you can find an educational advocate, because maybe some of these things might not be readily at the tip of someone's brain who has to do this, right? I know this stuff because I do it every single day. I teach it. I've been doing it for 20 years. But if you're a parent and you're working in banking and finance, or you're working in a warehouse, or you're working a graveyard shift, your mind is probably not thinking about all of this. But no, there are people who are thinking about this on your behalf all the time. So contact your local child advocacy or educational advocacy firm. I'm sure to be a quick Google search, and you type in your city, and you'll find someone that can say, these are your educational rights as the parent, and they'll help you understand, like, if it's okay for them to write that on someone's report card, if the consequence that they dealt out was appropriate, if the write-up that the teacher submitted was even fair. Because sometimes I know some teachers will hold it all in. I've been working with him all month, and now I'm writing them up and says, no, baby, that's not how it works. Grace every single day. Every single day you let him come and show up. Every single day he showed up, you gave him grace. That's what we start with.
That's really good.
Mhm.
Dr. Sheldon, as we are getting towards the end of another school year, kids and adults too, we tend to learn what we need to do for that moment, and then we auto dump. So
Yeah.
how do parents work hand in hand with educators throughout the summer months to retain that information, as far as information retention, reading programs, things like that, so they don't lag behind in the first 2 months? Coming back in the fall is
Yeah.
not so much of a struggle for the student or the teacher.
Yeah, we call that the summer slump. I was driving in my car today, and I don't teach or principal anymore. I was leaving one consulting firm, going to a professor job, and I was like, man, school needs to be year round. And I just heard every kid in America throwing something in my car because this summer slump, like 2 months out of school, is ridiculous. This is not the solution, but this is just my soapbox, since I get to
Right.
be here for today. But I really do think that the entire public education system would do well if it had an overhaul on the structure, right? And simply structuring students by their ability, with the appropriate resources around them, in a time-sensitive way that progresses them forward. Like right now, we look at the age of the child and we put them all in a room. You're 5? Good. All 5-year-olds in a room. Doesn't matter if this 5-year-old's been reading since he or she was 3. Doesn't matter if this 5 or 4-year-old never looked at the alphabet book a day in his life. They're all in the same room, and it's probably about 20 or 25 of them, and they got one adult, maybe 2, depending on the school system, and you're trying to teach these babies how to walk in line, wash their hands, go to the bathroom
With
together,
soap. With soap.
wash their hands with soap, not hand sanitizer, get through the cafeteria line together, play appropriately at recess, make sure you got your right school bus, right way home, be your car rider or a car walker. You didn't take somebody else's book bag, and I want you to know how to read, write, know math, it's a little bit of science, right? That's a lot. And you only get 9 months. It's not even 12 months. It's 9 months to do this, but you factor in the holidays that we're out, the vacation days that we're out, the professional development days that the students are out. They're with adults for 9 months. And then we say, oh, you've done a whole year. Now it's time for you to move on. It's really not fair. There's so many structures that could be replaced. Like one, looping. Having the same teacher for 3 years in a row. I've had the same doctor since I've lived in St. Louis and she knows my history. If I go to her about anything, oh, remember this happened a couple of years ago. We know how to treat this. Having that ready information makes it easier for her to prescribe medicine or give me treatment or talk to me when I get on the phone with her. Think about the power that would be.
That's really good. My cousin, my little cousin, he graduated from high school last summer. He just wrapped up his first freshman year at Littleton Valley College, somewhere in Pennsylvania. And he went to a private school. His parents put him in a private school, but the way it's set up is you start in the school in kindergarten. Now, he came in, I think, 9th grade or so, but you start in kindergarten and you're in the same school from K through 12. And these teachers have you the whole time.
Yeah.
And to see how these students flourish because they had the same teacher, the same principal, same everything for 12 to 13 years.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and of course, because of the type of school it was, tuition expensive, whatever, but they had the best of everything. And the teachers, the educators knew these kids almost like they were their own because they knew when they were having a bad day, they knew they're sad, they knew, oh, they're moody. Like they knew these kids because they've known them since they were in kindergarten.
I've had teachers under my direction who volunteered when I suggested the idea of looping with their first, second, and third grade class. And when those babies took the state test, the test scores were off the chart. Not to mention the camaraderie that was built amongst the students, the relationships that were built among the students and parents. Like those families are still tight to this day, even though they've been separated from each other by 5 years. The 3 years they spent together in class, learning each other, knowing each other's birthdays, knowing when each one, when their classmate loses a grandparent, knowing when their teacher is going to be sick and how to take care of the classroom so when she gets back. That comes from building a bond that you just can't do in 9 months.
So do you think that also helps as far as our social construct in the real world if we were to loop? Because if you look at where we are in the temperature of society with this polarization with racism and everything that's going on right now, if as a whole, if we were looped in our schools as children, what do you think our society would be like as an adult?
You know, I don't think it would hurt. I think you'd find that I think what you learn young as a child is that it takes time to get to know people, right? And so in this fast-paced moving society, like you find someone on social media, you think you like them, you grab their post, you move right along, and then you come to find out later they're not like any of your posts, whatever the case may be. So we're in that frame right now. But if you could slow it down a little bit, take 3 years to get to know someone and your classmates, I think it would build stronger communities, right? Because what happens for the most part is that children matriculate all through elementary and high school in the same community. Some people move in and out, right? I moved, but I only moved twice. And in those times that I moved, I was 8 years in one place, 8 years in another. For a long period of time, I had the same classmates, right? And so, and they all lived in my same little neighborhood, so I got to see them on a regular basis.
Right.
I think it wouldn't do anything personally, but build community and strengthen relationships where kids would learn that it takes time for you to get to know someone. So maybe it'll hopefully equate to where we're thinking no more snap judgments, no more looking at someone and judging them just by meeting them, because I know that it takes time to get to know someone. So hopefully that will come out of it. Now, if I get to the summer slump, which was your original question, I'm sorry,
No, you're fine. You have the floor.
But the summer slump is a serious concern to teachers. Some parents are really diligent and some aren't. You know, they think, oh, my baby's on break, I'm gonna let them break. All right, that's cool. But they really should be thinking, growing, and learning every single day.
Right.
So a couple of things that you could do. Reach out to your local libraries. They have summer reading programs all around the cities that students that are free. Kids can come sign up for 2 hours a day, read and discuss books, right? There might be on some college campuses like math exploratory programs where kids who like math and science can come work in those labs and those math laboratories and those robotics laboratories. So look out to your local universities. They have these summer camps that they run, and most of them are free. They might charge a little bit, but put your baby in a thinking program over the summer. If it's involved with the arts, with the sciences, anything academic, get them involved so that their brain is still doing push-ups through the summer. And if you don't want them in the summer camp, I encourage you to have book talks with them. Even if you go to Barnes and Noble or go to a public library and you buy books, bring the books home, ask them to read the books. You might not ever read the book, mom and dad, but just sit down and ask the baby to retell the story to you. So what's been happening in this story? Would you have done that? Oh my gosh, did you expect that to happen? And then, so you haven't finished reading it? Tell me what you think might happen tomorrow. It's 4 simple questions that'll get your baby talking intelligently about the work they're doing, right? And if I can indulge you for just one second, I'm going to pull up a quick message. So here in St. Louis, we have the Youth Empowerment Expo, which is hosted by St. Louis University School of Education. And so you can find out more information about that, but it's going to be from 8 to 4. And you're going to have things like STEM, ACT prep, college tours. You're going to have mental health awareness opportunities. They're going to have drone experiments, those little birds flying around. Like, that's really cool. I was walking on campus the other day and I saw them outside. Like, what are everyone looking at? But they were like, the drones were doing something in unison. And then there's also education breakout sessions. So like learning about math and science. And then also the Kappa League Expo is going to be here in St. Louis, Saturday, June 24th. And again, some of those same things that I just talked about, we're going to be discussing with the Kappa League. And if you have any questions about that, you can reach out to the St. Louis Alumni Chapter to learn more about that, or St. Louis University School of Education.
That's really good. Yeah. One more question before we wrap up, Dr. Sheldon. The future of HBCUs. You're an HBCU proud ASU.
Alabama State. Let's go.
So we're seeing this attempt to eradicate DEI organizations, programs. We were watching, was it Loyola University? Students were protesting the other day about keeping their AAS professor. There's a lot going on. So I just want to know, what is your take on the current state of HBCUs, the future of it, and what you foresee?
Yeah. Well, I love my HBCU. I love my A in front of my S. I love my S in front of my U. I love my ASU. All right. So, and they hold a special place in American history.
Right.
So that's the first thing. So I want those who are worried about diversity, equity, and inclusion, especially from a historically Black college, to calm down. Take a moment, okay? The history of these universities, what started out of, basements of churches, basements of hospitals, sometimes tents, sometimes in open rooms, outside, right? These universities were started because an injustice that was happening in America, from whatever way, was kind of corrected or ended. Slavery was ended through the Civil War, the Emancipation Proclamation, and of course I think the 15th Amendment, 14th and 15th. I'll get it. 13th, 14th, and 15th. I know those are the ones on the test. The 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment helped to end and correct some of the injustices of slavery. But what we didn't have was a strategy. You had 16 million people you just released out into the world with no income, no education, no housing, no means, right? And so HBCUs were created out of a necessity because you had 16 million people that we wanted to find a way to be a productive citizen in our country.
Correct.
And those same universities decided to create research places and create churches or theological seminaries where we were sending preachers out into the world, or create universities that were creating teachers that we were sending out into the world, and later on engineers and doctors and lawyers, to go out and be productive citizens in our society, right? To stand up against injustice and say, I too belong here. I work hard. I can show you my worth. So if we've been doing this since our inception, right? If we've been making sure that we have had diversity, equity, and inclusion since our very beginning, even legislation can't change that.
Mm-hmm.
So I hope that our HBCUs are more galvanized to stand up for the cause, to be of the champions, right? And that other universities, PWIs, if you have Black student unions, if you have people of color agencies on your campus, continue to fight for their voices to be heard, because what we do know is that to the victor goes the spoils. And if we quit and give up now,
Mm-hmm.
someone else gets to write the story and write the history. And that's not going to be okay.
Yeah.
Because our story, people of color, Black folks, Native Americans, Latino Americans, our stories in America deserve to be told. And we deserve to show up in spaces. It shouldn't be a huge brouhaha because a cartoon character, when she comes to life on screen, is now a person of color.
Right.
That should not shock and amaze. Now, I do love the fact that the kids were all awestruck by the fact that the Little Mermaid is Black now, right?
Right.
And I'm glad. And the world should see that, because representation matters. Children need to see themselves. This is why my children's literature always showcases children of color. They have to see themselves in the pages. They have to see themselves on the big screen. They need to burst out of the scenes with pride to see themselves in spaces. HBCUs have been doing that. When there were, I think Shannon Sharp made the comment, like the first Hall of Fame class that included Black folks all came from HBCUs, right? And so if we don't have an avenue for us to showcase our talents and spread our intellect and, reach out to the communities through this platform, then how can we? So don't be fooled or don't be deterred by any of these policies. We're going to take our time, and we have legal statutes that we can depend on, and we have legal giants that we can look to help us get through these cases. So I'm not giving away anything to someone who thinks that they're going to take away our culture and identity. We get to own and have that regardless of what they decide to do.
That's really good. I think that's really important. And I definitely want to have a more in-depth conversation later on as we watch this unfolding in this attempt to eradicate DEI programs and HBCUs. And I had mentioned to you before the show about what's going on with Howard University. So for those, and we're going to wrap up here as I put a pin in it, because I do want to circle back, because I want to see how this lawsuit plays out. But for those that are not aware, hey Jared, for those that are not aware, right now Howard University is facing a lawsuit stemming from a white student that was expelled from their school of law. He violated the university's code of conduct because he was pretty much racially antagonizing his classmates. And as a result, Howard University removed him from their program. And in turn, he is now filing, if I'm not mistaken, it's a $2 million lawsuit against Howard University. And so that is pending right now. And so I mentioned to Dr. Sheldon before the show, this will be very interesting, because the outcome and how this plays out is going to set major legal precedents for other HBCUs, because we have seen over the last 20 years an increase, an influx of non-minority enrollment into HBCUs. And so this story here is something I've kind of been keeping my eyes on, because I'm very curious as to how this will play out. Even if the suit is dropped, the possibility of them even doing a settlement, it still sets precedence, because now you open the door for the financial draining of our institutions for these erroneous lawsuits.
Right.
So that's something I want you all to think about going forward. But I want to put a pin in that, because that's a whole other rabbit hole of a conversation. And that gets my legal mind working in so many different ways. But first of all, Dr. Sheldon, I do want to say thank you for joining me.
Yes.
Always shed light. You are an author of children's books. So what is going on right now? Do you have any memoirs? novels. What's going on with you right now?
So I want to say again, thank you so much for having me, Camille. I enjoy talking with you too. I feel like, our indie love just always blooms when we get together, and
You know,
I expect great things out of our podcast shows and all
yes.
the other ones I will be tuning in. So right now there are 4 books on my website, and it's right there, Dr. SheldonCMcafee.com. The 4 books are the same ones I have: Mr. Wish, which is a book about magic and little kids; ABCs of Anti-Racism, which is a student-friendly book that teaches kids how to disrupt systemic oppression. I also have Everybody Came to Daddy Chuck's Funeral, which is a funny tale. I know it says a funeral, but it's a funny tale about a little boy and his cousins who get together at Granddaddy's funeral. And then my latest book rather, is called Shango. It's a comic book about the first one of my heroes in my novel. So I'm writing a novel, and the novel has 4 companion books. The comic
Oh,
books are for smaller children or younger age children, because the novel is more of a young adult or older type style book.
okay.
And so this book is called The Spirit Children of Yoruba. My goal is to have it published on my birthday, June 26th this year. It's
Talk
already
about those June babies. I'm telling you, I'm June 22nd. Come on.
because I'm a Cancer.
I'm an
um,
asparagus.
but my goal is to have it. The book is done. It's been edited and everything. I'm just formatting it now so that I can send it to my publisher. And I have a great publisher, Afrodemics. They are a Black-owned publishing company. I met the young man here, and I believe in what he's doing. And I just know that he's going to help me in that platform to launch this novel. I'm just going to tell you this. I feel it in my spirit that this is going to be something huge. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be interesting.
Yay, that's awesome. Thank you. And when that drops, you have to come back so we can promote that as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You're going to be before anybody else. Oprah,
Come
get it.
on. Come on. I want that exclusive interview. And that's another conversation as far as blacks in comics in that whole world. That's another conversation too.
Yeah, it's not a lot of us, but there are some really interesting companies out there. Black Sands is interesting. I love the work that they're doing. And then I can't think of another one off the top of my head, but those are probably the most popular ones. But yeah,
That's good. Awesome. And before we end everything, just maybe like a nugget or takeaway that viewers and listeners can kind of think about until you come back. And then just once again, where people can reach you on social media.
absolutely. Sure. So, my one nugget or takeaway is, if you have a child, know a child, love a child, read to that baby every single day. Read with that baby every single day. What you're doing when you read to that child, you are igniting intellect. You are creating moments where curiosity is being sparked. And when you spark that curiosity and you build on that intellect, you're going to release out into the world a human being, be him 4 feet tall, 6 feet tall, 5 years old, 22 years old, where they are going to have questions, where they're going to think about things in a different way. And what you'll notice is that when you start thinking about things in a different way, change happens. But it only starts when you start reading with them, because you're going to spark curiosity and you're going to release intellect. And they need that if they're going to be change agents.
That's good. And your Instagram.
So my Instagram is at Dr. Sheldon C. McAfee. You can follow me on Instagram. Facebook is Sheldon Mcafee. I think it's the DR and all that's not inquired. And then on Twitter, it's McAfee underscore doctor. So MCAFEE underscore DR.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, that being said, thank you again, Dr.
Oh, you
Sheldon.
can also find me on TikTok too, at DrSheldonCMcAfee.com.
Yes,
Dr. Sheldon C. McAfee,
and you
sorry.
might see some golf videos. He's a golfer, guys.
Oh yeah, yeah. I'm actually playing in an HBCU golf tournament that's hosted by FAMU in Chicago. I'm gonna have on so much black and gold. They gonna just give us the trophy because it's gonna be ASU day.
Okay, but don't mistake the black and gold
Oh no
for
no no! The only black and gold I wear is Alabama State University.
disclaimer, people.
Be clear.
Disclaimer.
That's the only black and gold.
Yes. Okay. Well, everybody, this is Camille Essick. I am host of the Speaker Up podcast. This is the podcast for innovators and Creators Connect. Be sure to follow me on Instagram at Camille.Essick, and I'm also on YouTube. I'm building up my channel, so do go over and hit that notification bell and subscribe. Join me next week at 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time as we close out the month of May with the one and only, the boss is coming, Malika Holloway. She'll be here next week at 8 p.m. So be a friend and tag one. And then that will leave us with 3 more episodes before we wrap up season 11 of the Speaker Podcast. If you've been following me on social media, then you already know who those people are. It's going to be lit, as the kids say. It's going to be lit. So, everybody, thank you. Hold on, Dr. Sheldon, and good night, guys.
Thank you.